All right, guys, so this looks fixed now. It should be. Let me know for those of you who may or may not be there. Cool. Thanks, Teddy. Basically, what ended up happening is I actually had to end the previous live stream because it was kind of locked, unfortunately, in the other position. It was vertical. Now we're good. People are starting to filter in. Thank you. Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate it. So a few things, kind of general housekeeping while folks filter in here. Hey, Rob, what's up, man? Glad to have you on. You guys, you're one of the people who motivated me to mix it up a little bit more in terms of the format and get into some stuff like this. So, first thing to kind of address while folks filter in, hey, if you haven't noticed, I actually did update my channel name to just add my first and last name in there. A lot of it has to do with the fact that in the comments, a lot of people just kind of mention, hey, average. Kind of like when you're on Hootie and a Blowfish and everyone calls you Hootie. So, yeah, my name's Mark, and I guess I don't really introduce myself, although my name is like on my Insta as well as in the end credits and everything like that. But I figure I would just let folks get to know me better personally and and really get more personal with everybody. So that's just me adding a little bit of myself back into the channel. I know these first couple of years have really been all about the products. But now you guys, maybe a peek behind the curtain, figure out who the guy is behind the 900 or so videos that are on the channel. Thank you guys again for the happy birthday wishes. One thing I also did want to mention is I did enable channel memberships not too long ago. But I never made a formal announcement. It's just kind of been there to click on. So with that, actually, I had two people join to become members. So I wanted to give them a huge shout out. Guy Redmond for joining 6 months ago when I just figured out how to turn that feature on. And Della Fanner for joining about 16 days ago. So that's awesome. I do appreciate that. I know people have tons of subscriptions and memberships to manage. So especially in this day and age, so anyone taking the time to directly support this channel it just means the world to me. So I really appreciate that. So they're full on bro professionals. So that's there. If you guys are, whether you're watching this live or on a rerun, that's something I did want to touch on. So getting into the questions, there weren't too many of them. So let's start with the dive watcher's question. He wanted to get a closer look at. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, I still have to reveal the surprise 40th birthday watch. So let's do that. Is it a Speedmaster? That was what was leading, or is it something else? Is it a SLA 017? Yes. This is just it's the watch. And at the end of the day, as much as you can put together bullet points and figure out which is the better watch, based on specs, based on all these other things, at the end of the day, especially after you've experienced as many watches as I have, it's all about just wearing what you want and getting what you want, right? And not getting it because you think that it is going to fill some particular space within some strategy, but at the end of the day, because it is just a watch that you love. And my most viewed video was actually of this watch, which is its kind of baby brother. And, of course, through my times on YouTube, one parallel that I noticed is that when you think about the original, let's say the 1968 high beat diver, which later on became the Marine Master, when they reimagined it, the Marine Master became kind of its own hit and its own thing. And I feel that's kind of the way it is with, hey, what's up, Kevin? Hey, appreciate you coming in from Florida. So I feel like it's a very similar thing that's happening here, where there's the original watch, right, the 62 MAS. There's a reissue, a very literal reissue, and then there's a reimagining that kind of has taken on a life of its own as this milestone and kind of like, hey, this is a $1,000 watch, safe money spent type of watch. For a lot of folks that collect. And similarly, when the Marine Master 300 reimagined that original high beat diver, it kind of took on a personality of its own. So I didn't want to just, get that out of the way. So here's them next to each other. you know what? I can probably get another. You guys remember my most worn watch of last year? Still, I mean, I'm still gonna wear these guys. Of course, you can see they're still running, so clearly I'm wearing them. Um, and they're still going. This one actually, I loved it so much. The Slim Turtle had to get, of course. Big shout out to Belmont Watches. The Glacier Dial, Save the Ocean, Slim Turtle, also on Tropic Strap, this one on the Anthracite. So these are still super wearable watches for me that I really enjoy. But when it comes down to kind of the Grail, the wearable Grail, attainable Grail, whatever you want to call it, my forever diver, it's this watch right here, and I'm kind of glad to share that with you guys. It doesn't mean that I still don't plan to eventually get an Omega Speedmaster. Um, yes, I do need to at some point expose a lot, but I will because one of the questions were top five microbrands, and I couldn't get it down to five, so I got like 10 microbrands I'll showcase here. But the first question was actually from the Dive Watcher. Now that that's all out of the way, the housekeeping and everything. So the Dive Watcher wanted to take a closer look at that Grand Seiko, the SBGR017 bracelet and construction. So I haven't done the dedicated review for this watch yet, but I've been wearing the heck out of this thing. I wore it to that yachts and watches event, and it was a lot of fun. It's funny because the dodecagon bezel is kind of back in style now because Christopher Ward just released their Gerald Genta inspired watch with a dodecagon bezel, which I find very funny. And it looks pretty cool. And it also has a textured dial. This one being, as you can see, kind of like a hex carbon weave dial. I love it in the white. I do feel like this is kind of a Japanese Explorer alternative. And even though it does come with a black model, I feel like the black with the carbon weave just makes it look like carbon fiber, whereas this with that carbon weave makes it look a little bit different. So I do like that. It's such a great watch. 200 meters of water resistance. As much as you guys have seen, like my collection, I think I did a stated collection specifically just for alpinists. You guys know like that's kind of my jam in terms of if you were to spec out something, right? 200 meters of water resistance, all the goodies. And this is just kind of, a grand play at that. But the bracelet is something that's really interesting. So the Dive Watcher did ask about that. So one thing to notice is that these are actually stepped links. So the way that this tapers is actually similar to something you would see on, like, let's say a rivet bracelet, except this is the opposite, right? Because this isn't riveted just to look cool. It's actually, these are all screw links, and this is a separate piece, this is a separate piece, and this is a separate piece. So that's three separate pieces there. And then this tube here is actually a sleeve that goes over another pin, and then these two little nuts on either end are also a separate piece. And then there's actually uh, three pins that go, like, basically there's a pin here, and they're all removable. Another pin here, and then another pin in the center that you can screw into. So it's like eight pieces when you take it apart, and it's really easy for these to get messed up because you can take them apart. People will put together the wrong sleeves, the wrong pieces. Actually, when I first got my hands on this, whoever the previous owner was, when they put it back together, they actually didn't have the taper correctly, and they had like big side paired to a little side. It looked kind of wonky, and the first thing I looked at was, oh man, they just didn't put it back together correctly. So big shout out to Belmont Watches for tracking, down my grail unknowingly, one that I had kind of given up on, and then there I was, and I found it. I immediately started putting everything back together, configuring the bracelet correctly, so you would have that beautiful taper back. And after I put in the work, I was like, oh man, I need this watch now. And I made some trades, and you guys have probably seen my Zen 556s on their site. So one of them already sold, the 556 IB, so the blue with indices and the fine link bracelet. So that one already sold. I think the 556A, the Arabic dial, is still there, but I did want to just give you guys that closer look. And then it does have half links. I do have one half link in here. The half link is pin and collar, while the rest of the links are all screw in. And then, pretty standard affair in terms of the milled folding section. Of course, the great badging there on the GS. And this is just one that I've tend to wear a lot because it's, I've wanted it so long. I gave up on finding it, got it again. So right now, like, I've been having to resist posting pictures of this on Instagram, but like these have kind of been my go-to watches as of late. And man, what a pair, right? Who needs a Submariner and an Explorer when you have these two? So that's a lot of fun for me. But moving on to the next question was from Panos Peter Pan, which was he asked about the top five micro brands in terms of design, quality, etc. And it was tough for me to narrow down. So I just decided I'm just gonna grab a bunch of them, but we'll start with the top three, guys. So let's do that. So top three, I will throw them out here. Sorry, I don't have everything running. Monta, guys. I mean, come on, you can't just. I mean, it is like absolutely the Rolex of micro brands in terms of quality. I'm pretty sure they even get. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm pretty sure the hands are actually produced in the same factory. So don't quote me on that. But these things are sweet. So these are kind of top two. Let me get the third one here off camera, just kind of digging through some stuff. All right, number three. All right, Helios. Um, for a lot of reasons. The price point, the design, the ownership. I mean, all these have actually really great owners and great teams, great design execution. But for me, these are kind of the three kings of micro brands. And it's not to say that there aren't other great ones out there. There's tons, actually. Like you guys know, you guys see my channel. But in terms of kind of being a Rolex Oyster Perpetual, competitor, I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever done it better than Monta has. It's absolutely fantastic. Love it, and you guys can see there's a bit of a commonality here, right? Between these watches, you get a little bit of water resistance, that kind of go anywhere, do anything, uh, you know, style to it in terms of having adventure watches. And then, I really love Formex. This is the Essence 39, really fantastic. Love the dial. You do get that cool little case feature there, the suspension, which really just means that when you have it on your wrist and you bend your wrist or your wrist swells, you're going to have just a little bit more comfort there. And they just do everything to extremely high levels. I'm a huge fan. I know they catch a lot of flack for their name. People are somehow okay with Rolex and Timex, but Formex sounds like something else, and people just regurgitate the same punchlines, and it's honestly just kind of corny to me that people are so into that. But I personally think Formex is awesome. Their name doesn't bother me, and their updated logo I think is great. Helios, guys, I mean, you guys know they're super desirable, but why? I mean, they do stuff like this that just over delivers for the money. You see something like this, guys. It has an awesome, you press the button. Look at that. It's just that's the way it should be, and it's great. There's of course a little bit of sweat because these studio lights are hot in here. So I love this piece, the brand, the design language. You're wearing a Helios, and even when I go to watch meets where people are wearing Yacht Masters and Nautiluses and stuff like that, people do want to see the Helios. People are like, hey, what's that? I'll actually have two Helioses. I also have the Fairwind diver. But people grab for these and they want to see them, and rightfully so. These are outstanding. So these are kind of top three. These are kind of in their own tier of micro brands, if you ask me. Of course, honorable mention going to Christopher Ward. I'd say they've ascended outside of the realm of a micro brand at this point. They're kind of just a strong, young, independent brand. But moving on to some others that I'm a huge fan of that kind of round out the top 10. Let's start with a good one here. Notice. I love Notice. They're kind of, you could think of them as the tutor to Monta. Not that they're related that way, but they just, they're fun. They're doing things. They have amazing execution, great style, and they retain their customers. There's groups and whatnot that are just dedicated to these guys. And they have a really fun release coming out soon in the Unity. I'm looking forward to sharing that one with you guys. And yeah, Notice is right up there, definitely within the top 10. Of course, Zelos, whatever you want to call it, another great brand. They just do it all. You can see they were jumping on to the textured dials way before a lot of people were. They were all about turning everything up in terms of functionality, right? You want to have the really super bright loom there. And then this is their Mako. It's one of my favorite models. And they actually recently released an update to the Mako line that are going to have the 9075 GMTs, which is great for all of you guys that like those jumping local hour hands. And then getting into, let's say, another. Hey, Boulder, these guys are great. Again, I really like the unique design language, the overbuilt style. Obviously, this isn't meant to be luxurious. It's just meant to be ultra capable. It looks very signature to Boulder. They just do cool things. You know, you got a display case back with the terrain lines there. You know, as prior active duty Marine Corps for so many years, stuff like this, you know, I still geek out at. It's just a fun piece of kit. All right, moving on to, let's do this one. This is an oldie but goodie here, guys. Orion, or in Japan, the beer is pronounced Orion, which is delicious beer if you ever go to Okinawa. Or actually, they sell it in other places. You can get it at sushi bars in the United States. It's not quite as popular, but I do highly recommend Orion beer or Orion beer. But Orion, the watch brand that came from Watches by Nick and all of his crappy surfer fame, just doing really great mods and everything. This is such a great watch. You see innovations like curved case back there, the knurling on the crown. This thing's just gorgeous. This is actually a limited run they did with the matte black dial and then the satin case and everything like that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, and then the dial itself is just very clean. He even did all of the actual font, right? So uh, it's just there's a certain dedication, right? And there's a balance because you want to do things different, right? But you don't want to be different just for the sake of different. So I like that. I appreciate that. Another real winner, guys, as of late, Traska. Check them out. I do wish that I had one of their new models, their Summiteer with the 3D stuff. But this is one of their newer divers, and I love this one. It's really fantastic. You get that the coating on here is immaculate. It's you know very reminiscent of something you would see in terms of Seiko and their hard coating on steel, except this is actually probably stronger and also looks a little bit clearer and isn't as tinted as Seiko's Dia Shield. So they do great stuff too. I love their aesthetic. It's very clean. So if you're a big, let's say, Tudor fan and you like that kind of very clean classic look, I think this is a really clean and classic diver. And their whole, I mean, they have crazy lineups with like really nice watches as well. Another adventure watch here, guys, that I absolutely love. Check this out, RZE. This one is outstanding. This has their marbled carbon fiber dial. Love this bad boy. It's nice and thin, titanium, hard coating too. Again, I like watches that will stay looking pristine longer, that I don't have to worry about as much. And yeah, this thing is sweet. Yes, it does have 369 big triangle vibes, right? In terms of it being explorer-esque, but that's where it stops. I mean, everything else about this watch is so original. I hate that so many people can't look past the 369 and just, you know, not be able to appreciate that this watch is doing something very, very special, right? And if they replace the 369 with, you know, hexagons or whatever, you know, then it would look like something else, and somebody would have something else to say. I mean, I think they've done enough to where they really differentiate themselves. I love the angular facets, the outdoor nature, the toughness. So that is a really awesome one. And I guess we can round out this group here with one of the most famous and desirable micro brands that there is right now, Baltic. Honestly, these guys are doing it so well. It's kind of like, why even start a new micro brand that does vintage inspired stuff if you can't do it as good as Baltic? I mean, they're just everything. It's just, I mean, it doesn't feel super rich or luxurious. Like it's nothing like if you were to try to compare it, it's not comparable by any means. But Baltic, I mean, these are watches that if you were to go back to the time that these watches were inspired by, you would see this and think, oh my God, this is like the greatest machining and tolerances you've ever seen, right? It's similar like that with cars today, right? Like your average Camry can outrun a Ferrari from the 90s, which is pretty wild to think about. So stuff like that, where you just get that aesthetic, it just hits everything, right? You still get, I love drilled lugs, but then you also have quick release spring bars. It's that mesh and that meld of old and new, and this is just super clean. I love this watch. I should probably wear it more. But now I got daddy here that just kind of does it all, right? So um, that will probably steal a lot of this one's wrist time. But I just think, especially in this colorway, it's very underappreciated. Everybody typically just fawns over the blue with the gold and everything, which is gorgeous. But I'm not huge into patina loom. I don't mind it having like hints of green, right? Like it's loom, it's gonna glow green, right? Like Seiko, enter the chat. So I don't mind that, but when it's like very mustardy stuff like that, like I think it has to be done in a very particular way for me to really, really enjoy it. So yeah, that's top 10 micro brands within my experience, and 30K and 12 million views and all that jive. These are really great micros that I really love. So the next question was watch prices nowadays. They are not great. From LE, who left this comment in the community tab. So yeah, I guess I should address that. So of course, inflation has made everything more expensive, and that combining with the greater interest within the space, right, within collecting watches, they're coming back into style. Many brands and models that we love have become more expensive. Yeah, like that's just kind of to be expected. I'm not thrilled about it. I'm not like excited to pay more, but I will say that a lot of brands have specifically been targeting higher end markets, and it's not to say that they're leaving you behind. As more of a casual buyer who maybe doesn't want to spend more than $1,000. I mean, you still got options like this, right? So there's still affordable stuff that's out there. But if people want to make money, there's certain growth sectors that make more sense, right? Where you'll get a bigger return on investment. Selling watches for, $2,000, $3,000 is kind of more room to grow versus selling watches for under 1,000, where it's highly, highly saturated, right? So it's just one of those things. I don't think it's malicious. It just ends up being quite strategic. And honestly, as brands get more successful, right? Maybe they should. I mean, have you been working for a successful brand? Like you want to get a piece of that pie and you want to get a raise and everything, you want to get a promotion. So behind all any price increases, of course, are a lot of hard workers, a lot of craftsmanship. Like everybody wants to talk about the craftsmanship of Grand Seiko, right? But I'm pretty sure the one guy or two guys that do certain things, certain dials, certain polishings, those guys make a lot of money and they probably should, right? So, there's always the other side to that. But yeah, watch prices are pretty crazy. But I will say that there are a lot of gems. A lot of them are out here on this table in terms of really great watches you can get for affordable prices and do offer a lot of value regardless of the price bracket, right? Whether it's a $500 watch or it's a $1,000 watch. So I did want to mention that. And then Michael Stevens had the last question, which was which three books covering watchmaking and watch history would you recommend? So I honestly haven't been super into those types of books. So I will just recommend, because I actually prefer more article-based books, and just reading articles in general, just so I can get stuff that's a little bit more diverse and specific in terms of the information that I'm looking for versus just kind of general timeline of horology and trends. But you really can't go wrong with classics like A Man and His Watch. And then there's also the Airtime, Drive Time, and Sea Time series of books. The Sea Time series, it's hard to even find that book right now. I think it's out of print. The Airtime and Drive Time you can find pretty easily. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Airtime is basically just focusing on pilots' watches, Drive Time on motorsports-oriented watches, and Sea Time, divers and nautical watches. So I have flipped through the pages of all of those books and love them and kind of wish that I bought them. Um, but A Man and His Watch is probably one that I should probably get. Just I feel like every YouTuber has it in the background of their studio setup. So I think that's something that could be fun. But one I did have a recent uh, piece that I got on eBay, which is the Grand Seiko Complete Book. This is a newer one, not super expensive, and of course they read the other way in terms of the pages and whatnot. But let me lay this out, and then we can flip through some of the pages. This could be kind of fun. Not endorsing them. I'm just obviously a fan. So and then while I kind of move these watches out of the way, try to do it nicely and not scuff and scratch them all up. So give me 1 second here. Maybe I won't even put them away nicely. Maybe I'll just like lay them on top of some stuff off camera. Just keep this party train going. Okay. All right. So you like books. All right. Could you please do a review on the Greville Amsterdam Silver Dial? I don't own that watch, but I can definitely look into it for sure. Um, Leave that in the community tab so I can go back to it, whatever the most recent post is. And then, what is the best diver under $2,000? So it's tough because when you say $2,000, do you mean $2,000 retail or $2,000 in general in terms of what you could buy, right? And then that goes either way, right? I think in terms of the best diver you can get that covers every base, the Black Bay diver is up there in terms of being the most accessible price wise. You can get it. But gray markets, aftermarket, it's been used, something like that. You can get a lot of other things, right? And again, it's really what you want. I feel like sometimes we shortcut things and we say, well, I want the one that's like the one, like the most desirable, the most street cred, right? Which I would say probably the Black Bay is the safest option. If you want to spend your money and put it in a place where no one's ever going to say, why would you spend your money on that? Like that's the opposite for like Tag Heuer, right? You're going to get questioned left and right. Even if you love Tag, people will question why you got that watch. Nobody will question why you bought a Tudor. They're safe and sound value. For me, I preferred the Zenyu 50. It is, it doesn't have a lot the same in-house movement qualities, but everything else is has in-house qualities in terms of the production and everything. So, how many watches are my collection? Too many. Hundreds. Like literally boxes and boxes taking over 3 different closets for the boxes for the watches. And then there's also the cases. Like I have like a lot of the watches are actually stored in a it's like a rolling like cart for scrapbooking, and each one you can pull out essentially is like you open it up and then there's just like bunches of watches laid in there. But I am gonna purge the collection. I think my wife might be watching this live stream, so honey, I'm gonna purge, and a lot of that actually has to do with building a real collection. Like right now, I haven't really had as much of a collection. I've just had a lot of watches from having the channel, of course. But I haven't had something where I carve it out and say this kind of represents me, and that's something I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys. So I have been kind of scoping out my personal core collection, which I think I'll share with you guys. But yeah, no, yeah, Random Rob is awesome. I love what he does, and he was on here earlier. I don't know if he still is, Rob, if you're here. But he's great. We've met a couple times in person, and yeah, he's honestly like probably one of the best templates of hey, what you can do if you just be yourself on YouTube. So big shout out to Rob. Um, but in terms of some literature, why not go through this? This actually has like 2 little slip covers. One slip cover there, another slip cover there. Whoa, look at that. Go back to the original Grand Seiko, and then like now the new hotness with the white birch, and of course that outstanding movement. So we'll close this thing out. It's been 30 minutes, but I figure why not go through this little guy here, just because it's kind of cool. You can see some great sketches. Maybe you see some of this stuff eventually make it out to future models, which is something that's cool if you get the books, the magazines from Christopher Ward. They do a lot of Easter eggs in theirs. And then, oh man, look at that. The constant force tourbillon. That thing is just next level. Uh, okay, sweet. Of course, what we all love, a little Grand Seiko snowflake action. And what I like about this little magazine is that it basically kind of gives you their use cases, like what they imagine, essentially. Like they paint a picture for you in terms of, oh, this is a city watch. This is a watch that reflects nature. Um, I even found my first Grand Seiko in here somewhere. And then you got Sky, right? You're a traveler. They show the guy with the luggage out in the sea, outstanding diver. Hey, thank you so much. My birthday is technically still a couple weeks out. This is an awesome one. I have this watch. It was my first luxury watch actually, and I still have it, of course. My Grand Seiko, the SBGM245. I reviewed the green dial model, which I want to say it was like a 243 or 247. Loved it, but I had to have a blue dial. Part of it is because one of Seiko's corporate colors is blue, so it's just kind of cool. I like that they were like, hey, this is the dress down, the passage of time, spending time with your kids. This ad really spoke to me. So you don't be surprised if you don't see me lay my Grand Seiko across this and take a picture of it and put it on Instagram at some point. Um, Light, right? Out in the day, out at night. I like that. For me, it's always been the mission statement that actually, and the themes of watches that really interest me. Of course, I like general design, but what it's for, right? It's just like a car. Like, is it a sports car? Is it a race car variation? Is it, a family car, luxury car? It's those little niches that really get me to invest in a watch. And then, of course, you get great information in terms of historically. It's going to go from 1960, 67, bunch of different milestones in terms of, Grand Seiko, the 90s, after they got revived, not, having not made watches in a while, and not made mechanical watches in a while. They were kind of relegated, those first couple that came back, to these really great quartz movements. And then you start seeing them, go back to town with their mechanicals, and you've seen just recently, they're still expanding, right? And doing great things with spring drive, man, precious metals. They kind of do it all. But hey, guys, I really appreciate you all hanging out. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll give you guys a chance. I can totally do some rapid fire stuff before we close it out. But I really appreciate everybody's support. It really means the world to me, to the fam. I have a beautiful wife and 3 kids, and they're always very, very supportive. I just love them to bits, and this is something that does help. Especially being a veteran, being able to kind of have a place to just be yourself and just enjoy the hobby. It makes everything great. So tuned in late, birthday watch. Let's see it. SLA017, guys. The 62 MAS reissue. So these originally came out. They're about 3,400 bucks. Then immediately were sold out of all 2,000 units, and then people just started just hoarding them and charging a lot. I was able to get this one at a reasonable price, but it was in unreasonably good condition. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't get it for a steal. But I did get it for a good, strong price, considering that it's basically flawless. All those salesman tricks where they go, "Oh, this was a doctor's watch." They pulled all that stuff on me, and then, "Oh, somebody was looking at this the other day, so it might be gone." They pulled all the tricks out for me, but I just kept it real, stuck to my guns, got back to my wife, of course, talked to her about budget, and she was very supportive, and she was happy to take some pressure off of her in terms of just point and click, find the right deal. You can see that rehot with that high polished finish is just outstanding. That's it's just a gorgeous piece, and you can see why there's been so many reinterpretations and reimaginings. And yeah, this was Seiko's first diver. There's the historical significance. This is the first time and maybe the last time they've ever reissued it. So who knows? Maybe in 30, 40, 50 more years, this will be a real piece kind of in its own measure. I will say that because it has gone up, this has a closed case back. Because it has gone up in value, it's kind of like wearing sometimes like a very desirable Swiss watch, where it's worth so much you kind of don't want to mess it up. So lucky for me, still have these hallmarks within the collection to wear and wear daily, beat up if I have to. Whoa, book wanted to close right now. I think that's Mother Nature telling me, uh, you know, I should probably wrap this thing pretty soon. So, have these great watches as mainstays within the collection, and also, daily wearable watches that aren't going to break the bank if something ever happens, and no one's ever going to rob me for these. I mean, there's they're just Seikos at the end of the day, and hopefully they keep thinking that when I'm wearing this bad boy. But I again just really appreciate everybody, not just for tuning in now or rewatching this on replay, just for the support, the comments. I mean, obviously, YouTube comments can be a very cruel and unforgiving place, as you guys know. And then, yes, that is good, Keith. um, so I know probably some of you are still upset with me for not being thrilled about the Citizen Challenge Diver, because I was disappointed in it. Everybody thought that I was just like wanting to bring down Citizen, even though I've like featured some of the best Citizen watches you can buy today, and I love them. And one of my first things is I talk about how they have quality at a higher tier, that Seiko sells in that price point, but for the lower tier, right? Like you're getting a Grand Seiko, King Seiko competitor for Persage prices, with those NB 1060s that I featured. So, hey, can't please everybody. I want, of course, the industry to, I want people to put out world beating stuff like this. Was awesome. If you think about, let's say, cars. It's like when the NSX came out, right? Acura put out the NSX Honda, and it made Ferrari start building faster cars. When Nissan dropped the R35 GTR, it made Porsche start building faster Porsche turbos. Like, that's cool. I want to see that. I want to see people challenge the market by just creating something that transcends that. And this is one of those pieces, right? And you can say back similar thing for the Turtle reissue, or even the original Turtle, or the SKX, right? There's just those ones that kind of are able to challenge the market. And I really wanted the challenge diver from Citizen to do that. And unfortunately it didn't. And it's I think design wise, it's very clean. It again, it goes back to minimalist looks, although it's inspired by a watch from 77 that looks like this, whereas this is inspired by a watch that was made in 65. So they were pretty homagey back then. Not let's not even talk about the fact that they were rocking and still are rocking a, Mercedes hand, which you guys can guess where that came from in terms of inspiration. But I would have loved to see that watch just executed to a higher standard, so that it would have, again, hey, new benchmark, beat this watch, right? And then everyone will have to raise their standards so they can beat you, and then it just keeps everything going forward, keeps everything competitive. So with that said, guys, it's almost been 40 whole minutes. My goodness, thanks everybody for hanging in, stopping by, everything like that. Keith, thanks for being active on here in the comments. Appreciate that. Sean, all these guys, everybody who commented along the way, everybody who left a nice question along the way for me to answer. Appreciate that. And again, my two channel members, Guy McRedman and Della Fanner, you guys are awesome, for the for the price of, I think it's like 2.99 or something like that a month. You're giving me massive smiles and helping inspire me to continue doing this. Hey, Yut. Whoa, Keith, are you Marine Corps? Because if you are, Semper Fi, sir. If you're Keith Steele, which is a Marine that I served with, then even better. If you're not, don't feel bad. Uh, but hey, I was okay. Are you Steele? My own. Okay, Semper Fi, Semper Fi. Let's go, Devil Dog. Kill bodies. Hopefully, I don't get demonetized for saying that. That's a if you're watching this, not Steele. Okay, Keith S. So close enough. But I'm sure you were absolute terror while you were serving. We all were. So, with that said, guys, thanks so much. If you're rewatching this, leave a comment whenever the comment section opens up. Everybody else, appreciate it. On to the next 30,000 subs. Thanks, guys.